Reached out to Sal in the wake of the news that the Bills are signing Elijah Moore, and Sal Capaccio joins us now on the West Her hotline.
It's way funnier. We reached out to Sal to ask him about Elijah Moore, and he told us to go to hell.
Yeah, well, but then he changed his mind. The boss put the pressure on, put the squeeze on.
You guys again?
Oh my gosh!
I almost made it through the entire afternoon without having to talk to them.
Oh my god! I was I had a buddy text me just a little while ago. I was laughing because he was kind of revisiting what happened Monday, and now we get to a point in the receiver, and he texted me just simply the quote from Bill Polian. Said, "Jim Kelly is our quarterback. Marv Levy is our coach. If you don't like it, you can get the hell out of town."
Right.
Right? Just so funny thinking about like how this all turns, how this league works, and how everything fans and debate. And we didn't have social media back then, right? It would have been amazing with Polian and some of the stuff that wound up happening. Look, I mean, the Bills here right after what happened on Monday with Brandon Beane coming on the radio, we had learned that Elijah Moore, was in for a visit. So clearly, in some capacity, Brandon Beane did feel that he needed to do a little bit more in the wide receiver room, whatever that is. So now here it is. He is signing, and thank God, honestly, from my standpoint, that I don't have to deal with all of this stuff of, with the contract and the compensatory stuff and the unrestricted free agent tender. He's a Bill. It doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
That's all dead.
So where do you think, how significant is this? We were talking here, it's one of these things that just, drops in our laps, 3/4 of the way through our afternoon show here. About 50% snaps in the slot. The money's not, it's not huge, but it's more significant than either of the veteran wideouts they signed last year after the draft in Claypool, which was only $1 million, and even MVS, I think, was maybe 4.5 guaranteed, or maybe the guarantee was a little less than that, but whatever. This is up to $5 million, so we don't know the whole breakdown, but it feels to me, Sal, like maybe he and Curtis Samuel are duking it out for playing time on this team.
Yeah, probably right, Bulldog. I mean, they don't really have a true number 2 slot receiver, right? I mean, I think you could say that, Khalil Shakir is your true number 1 slot guy there, but, it's not Keon Coleman. And even Joshua Palmer is more of a boundary guy with what he does, but he can play in the slot for sure. A lot of the guys have the Bills love flexibility, and that's what he brings too. There's no doubt. But I agree with you. I think that, this is a guy that's going to now compete for snaps, probably with Curtis Samuel. We'll see where that goes, but could be really with anybody. It's just you want to raise the level of competition with everybody once they get to camp, and that's what they've done here with Elijah Moore. So kind of raises the floor from that. I was thinking a lot about Laviska Shenault over the last few days, and it's not that I think he's going to the guy might not even make the team, right? But it wasn't even that he could be some high-end producer, but the fact that he can win a kick return job, and that Brandon Beane mentioned they liked him coming out of the draft a few years ago. I thought he could factor in a little bit here too. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's a guy that kind of at least gets a little bit of time to show what he can do.
I feel the knock on him for me was finding out that he doesn't have any punt return experience. Not that they couldn't. If the kickoff thing changes dramatically enough, maybe a team, maybe the Bills as that team, would feel it's worth the investment just for a guy who does that really well, better than anybody else we've got. But I kind of feel like it's more ideal to have, like, say, Codrington, who did both last year. You got a guy that does both. That's what you do.
Well, I think you're going to want 2 kick returners, though. That's the thing.
Oh,
and,
right.
Yeah, because the way the alignment is now, they're going to want 2 kick returners. And I do think that their projection is it will change a lot. There's going to be a lot more kick returns. If you listen to Beane and McDermott at the owners' meetings, and even when they signed Shenault, I mean, Brandon Beane now, there's no guarantee. Again, it could be somebody else. It could be Ty Johnson, whoever. I think they believe enough in the fact that this is going to dramatically change enough that they want a guy that's going to be able to do this.
Elijah Moore, for what it's worth, did a little bit of punt returning, very little in the NFL, and some in a couple of his college seasons at Ole Miss. You hinted at the sort of the irony of being on the station on Monday and then this move. Is there anything more to say about this with that? Like, I would say no to this. I don't think he's going back on anything that he said. Really, it was more in the context of the draft. But, he did kind of rant on about how successful their offense was. And, as it happens, last year say what you want about the players, they did quite a bit of this going into what was left in free agency, bringing in Claypool and MVS and so on, Isabella, Hamler, guys over the years, just to give themselves more chances at, a hit, I guess. This is maybe above those names, but I don't think he's going back on anything. Maybe you guys can think of a way that he is. I don't know.
I would say no for the timing of it. He came on the radio. They'd already known Elijah Moore was coming in. He was here, like when that happened.
Right.
Or they were bringing him in. He was literally reported. I don't know if you guys know the timing of how this happened, but when Brandon Beane's segment ended on Monday, and he got off the phone with Jeremy and Joe, they went to break. There was a report during that break that Elijah Moore was
right.
going to be in Buffalo on a workout. So clearly that was already in the works before he came, on the radio. So I don't think he's going back on anything. He already knew that was happening. I agree with you that I think his context of what he heard and what he was responding to was, drafting and the draft. And that's why he brought up the 2018 thing with Allen and Rosen, because what the Bills did or didn't do in the draft and the reaction to it specifically. So, yeah, I don't think that there's anything more to just kind of, I'm gonna revisit what I said on the radio, or I'm going back on anything. That was this had to already be in the works from that standpoint.
Oh no, yeah, I don't mean that exactly. Just in terms of what he said about what their moves have been, the philosophy, the success they've had, anything like that. He didn't have to necessarily be done at receiver in the last couple of days, as it's gotten pretty heated at times. At one point, I think on Monday, I'm like, he boxed himself in on a big move. Like, they're not trading for George Pickens now because he's telling you that he likes what they've got. I wouldn't take that any farther than that, though, to mean that, they couldn't sign another free agent or two and give themselves, more options.
Yeah, I came out with you guys on Monday, and I said I wouldn't close the door. The only thing I thought it might be a little longer. I didn't think it would be this quickly, but they did it right away, right? And, so I think that happening now just gets him into camp. But look, if you look at the timing, they signed Chase Claypool on May 3rd last year. They signed MVS on May 14th. This is the timing this generally happens, right? You're going to bring a guy in before you have your rookie mini camp, more OTAs. You get a good look at him, and then you can kind of decide what you want to do as you go to the summer. We don't know the details on this yet. This is like Tre'Davious White where, okay, it's up to that much money. Well, how much is actually the guarantee? That's going to speak a lot, I think, to where they see his possibilities here on the team. Now, his guarantee was going to be $3.4 million, as we talked about yesterday, if he went back to the Cleveland Browns if he hadn't signed before July 22nd. Does that mean the Bills are giving him that sort of guarantee? Or it could simply be he's taking less guaranteed money to bet on himself to
better opportunity. Right.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
Do you have an opinion of Elijah Moore? Best I've got really is that he was an exciting idea to me coming into the league in the 21 draft, and somebody that I loved the idea of for the Bills at pick 30. They also had pick 30 that year. They went with Rousseau and worked on defense. Isn't that familiar how that sounds? Same pick number and everything. But he has not had a good pro career. There are a little bit of some numbers with the Browns last year. Third on the team in catches, 61. And it's, easy to point to the Browns and sort of say, and the Jets before the Browns, in Moore's case, that the quarterback play was pretty bad. So there might be a player here. He's 25. He just hasn't in 4 years really stepped up.
I would agree with pretty much everything you said. This was a hot idea in that draft. And in fact, so much, I would say, I know this, I'm kind of being joking here with you, Mike, but I think you talked about Elijah Moore as much as you've talked about Luther Burden this year.
Yeah,
back in that
that's
draft,
about right. That's about right.
Right. So, I know you liked him. I liked him a lot. And I remember that draft, and the Bills didn't take him, and how many people were very upset. The Bills didn't draft Elijah Moore, and he'll be such a great fit for the Bills. Well, he's been on two teams now. The Jets, who, need players, and they wound up trading him, and the Browns here, who can't get out of their own way, and he can't really be very productive with them. He's been okay. So it hasn't hit. He has not been the player many people thought that he would be coming into the NFL. Doesn't mean he can't be. I would say this. You hit the nail when you said he kind of outranks some of these other guys, even in production, right? He's been more productive than Andy Isabella, that's for sure. He's been more productive than a Chase Claypool. Other than, Claypool's first couple of years, I guess he was pretty productive. But, from that standpoint, he's a little more intriguing to me than he would be those other names.
Recognizing that there are, of course, mitigating circumstances here, playing time, injury, etc. 61 catches last year with the Browns.
Yeah.
Only Khalil Shakir had more than that, and kind of by a lot on the Bills. I mean, Coleman, again, there's injury. Kincaid, injury, but that's 29 and 44. Hollins was 31. Knox, 22. Cooper, 20. Curtis Samuel, 31. Sorry, he was down below there because I got a different thing highlighted. But still, so for as much of a, oh, well, how good is this guy? I mean, he's the second leading receiver on the Bills almost by double anyone else.
Bulldog, I don't have it in front of me. Where did he rank on the Browns last year?
Third in catches. Like Judy had 90-some catches, and then Njoku had 64.
So as wide receiver, he was number 2.
Yeah,
right?
One touchdown.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you guys know, right? I mean, this isn't like anything that's super special analysis, but a lot of it's just role you play, right? What role do you play on that team versus the other team? He's going to be a different role on this team, most likely. Could he eventually carve out that kind of role for the Bills? Sure. I mean, I could see it, but then it's got to be at the expense of somebody. And I think, go back to our original part here, it's probably Curtis Samuel. But, he's a different role on the Browns last year than what he's probably going to be on the Bills this year, which impacts all of that. But I think he's going to get opportunity here.
Okay. Sal, thanks for fitting us in.
You got it, guys. Thanks.
There's Sal Capaccio on the Wester Hotline. His appearance is brought to you by New York's only outlet liquor. When you need to stock up, it's the place to buy a case. What's your outlet? More stats if you want them, courtesy of our buddy Sneaky Joe from the morning show. He just tweeted, this is very hot off the presses, 36 seconds ago, 47% of Elijah Moore's 102 targets last season were uncatchable.